This is John Jackson Miller. I am the founder and curator of Comichron.com, the world's largest public database of comic book sales figures, here with the sales charts preview for November 2018. These numbers come as usual from Diamond Comic Distributors. They provide the initial sales charts, and then we do some analysis to figure out what the overall size of the market is, and provide some context and some history as to what's been going on with the market overall. Now, for November 2018, the theme for the month is what I'm calling supply-side economics, and that isn't as scary a term as it sounds, because what we're really going to talk about today here is simply the major influence that publisher supply has on sales in the industry, the number of comics that get released every month. This particular month, we knew going in that it was going to be a down month because it was a 5-week month being compared with a 4-week month. There were 5 Wednesdays, 5 new comic book days in the month of October, and only 4 in November. That is the reverse of what it was in 2017. So, for example, last month when we had this report here showing that we had just gone above the line at which we were ahead for the year in October, we had gotten about 1/3 of 1% above the break-even point, 2018 versus 2017. And of course, it's been going sort of the right direction most of the year anyway, since the winter. We knew even then that part of that was coming from the fact that October had an extra week on the same month in the previous year. November, we knew it was going to give some back, and it did. Now, we ended up about 1% down for the year, a little less than 1% down from the year at this point in November. December is a different matter, and I'll get to the scenarios involving December later. But one of the things about November is it turned out that it was actually a bit more of a dip than we were expecting, and part of it had to do with supply. Now, if we look at the sales versus the previous month, November versus October, we already know are not going to be very meaningful because October had an extra week. So, you're looking at usually between 10 and 14% more material out than you would normally have in a 4-week month. And here we're actually doing a bit worse than that 14% level, down 17.81% in dollars, close to 20% in units. And part of the reason for that is, when comparing with the previous year, November 2018 versus November 2017, that is once again a 4-week month versus a 5-week month last year. The numbers are not quite as bad there because the comics that were selling in November of 2017 were weaker generally than the ones which were selling in November of 2018. So, we're looking at a 13% drop versus the same month in the previous year in dollars, 13.02% in units, and then comics is just off 5% in dollars. Graphic novels, a much worse picture for graphic novels. And part of the reason for that is that increasingly graphic novel sales seem to be shifting. Publishers are increasingly loading them all up in October, figuring that retailers will want to stock early and have as much stuff available already on the shelves as possible before Black Friday and everything that follows that. Now for some of that supply-related context I was talking about. If you watch here every month, and if you don't, you can subscribe very easily. What you will notice is that we normally don't show this next chart until the end. It is the new releases chart. It's how much material publishers shipped to the retailers. How many new titles that have never appeared before in the Diamond charts appeared for the first time. And what they do here is they combine all variant covers, so it's the same, all of the different variants for a single issue, all fused together. So when you see that there were 79 Marvel comics out, that's 79 different stories, 79 different issues, which may have then represented multiple covers each, or however many overall. but Diamond merges them all together for the purposes of the charts. And what we see here is that we have in November not just a smaller month in terms of the number of releases than October or the previous November. It's actually the smallest slate of new comics since April of 2016, and that is before you had the DC Rebirth event. So this is going back, 31 months. Marvel, in fact, with its 79 comics shipped, that's the smallest slate of new comics Marvel has had since October of 2015. That is a significant factor here in how things develop this month. Despite all of that, Marvel ended up finishing 3% in dollar terms over what it did in the previous November. So it was still a successful month for Marvel on the basis of many fewer comics than it had out. DC had a very significant difference from the previous year. DC had shipped 95 comic books in November of 2017. This November, it shipped 67. So that is a significant factor in what happened this month. DC's sales were off significantly versus the previous November, in part because of that. DC also had some timing issues going on because it did not have an issue of Doomsday Clock out. It also, the Batman Damned series is bi-monthly, did not have an issue out. Those both have issues in December. But again, we are looking at a significant difference in the number of comics out, not just in November, but also just overall. Now, this has been an ongoing theme this year that publishers had cut back on their releases because 2017 had been soft. We have seen through this point, the end of November in 2018, 5,155 comic books released. That is down from 5,472 at the same point in 2017. That is a drop of 6%. And why is that significant? When we look at the year to date, we'll see that the comic sales by units are down 6%. So this is a case where the supply really does matter. Publishers shipped 6% fewer comics to retailers or made 6% fewer available to be ordered, and they ordered 6% fewer comics. In fact, this is actually a chart that's slightly to the benefit of 2018 in the sense that we also know that 2017, that unit sales chart was laden with a lot of overshipped comics and also comics that were 25 cents for Image's 25th anniversary. So really, the comics number for 2018 really should be closer to -5% or -4%. And considering that it's based on 6% fewer comics, that means that each comic book is doing better per issue relative to the previous year. And of course, in dollar terms, it's up 1.5% year to date. So that is, again, coming from a lot fewer comics coming out. So that is significant. And as expected, as mentioned, November did push us down under the break-even point for the year with 2017. It pushed us a little farther than I think I was expecting just because there were so many fewer comics released. And also the graphic novels as well were less significant in comparison with 2017. But it is less than 1% difference year to year. Let's take a look at the market shares real quick. We have Marvel with a 40.8% dollar share, and that is enough for first. DC is in second with 26 3/4. Image, which was much higher in October thanks to all those graphic novels it released, is at 8.5%. IDW is fourth. Dark Horse is fifth. Dark Horse had a significantly better month this year than it did in November of last year, so that's another plus in the column of the year-to-year comparisons. Boom at 3%. Last part of the chart here, Dynamite, Viz, Titan, and Oni. And the unit shares for each, you'll notice that Viz has much fewer units sold than its dollar share, and that is because Viz is selling mostly manga. And Titan, likewise is significantly higher in its dollar share, in part because these shares include magazines. And of course, we saw magazines in that previous chart here a little bit ago. You'll see that Titan has 5 magazines shipped there. Their magazines tend to be costing more than your average comic book does. So that is why you'll see the dollar share for Titan higher than its unit share. Now let's move on to the top-selling comic book of the month. This is, to no one's surprise, Uncanny X-Men #1 was the #1 comic book in units, and because it was an $8 comic book, it's also the top comic book in dollars. Then we move on to looking at our other top 5 titles. Green Lantern #1 is in 2nd place. Web of Venom Carnage Born is in 3rd place, and Venom is just having a very good month, very good fall rather, with the movie coming out and the performance of Donny Cates' various Venom stories. Amazing Spider-Man #10 is in 4th place, and Batman 58 is in 5th place. Now, to look further down the charts, we'll see 59 is in 6th place. We have Amazing Spider-Man 9 in 7th place. 10 did better than 9, I think, because 10 is a Black Cat issue. Heroes in Crisis is in 8th place. Avengers #10 is in 9th. And then we have Venom #8 in 10th place. Now, that same chart by dollars is slightly different in that Web of Venom Carnage Born goes from 3rd to 2nd. Green Lantern 1 goes to 3rd. Now, why would that be if Green Lantern 1 sold more copies than Web of Venom? Well, it's because this chart is based on what retailers paid Diamond. So apparently, retailers got a better discount for Green Lantern 1 than they got for Web of Venom 1. And then the rest of the chart is you have another hop there from Avengers #10, that being a $6 book that leaps a lot of the other titles. But there are no titles in this chart that are not in the unit chart. Going to graphic novels, as mentioned, Venom by Cates. The soft cover, volume 1 for that, is the #1 graphic novel in units. Again, this was a softer month for graphic novels. And we have Thanos, the Infinity Conflict. That's the original graphic novel hardcover at $25. That's in 2nd place. Justice League Volume 1, the totality, is 3rd. This is a very long title. Black Eyed Peas presents Masters of the Sun, The Zombie Chronicles, $25 book in 4th place. Amazing Spider-Man by Nick Spencer, Volume 1, Back to Basics, is in 5th. The Immortal Hulk, Volume 1, or Is He Both, is 6th place. Batman White Knight, our leader from the month of October, is in 7th place. Unnatural Volume 1, Awakening, is in 8th. Star Wars Lando Double or Nothing is 9th, and Domino Volume 1 is in 10th. The dollar chart for graphic novels is significantly different as usual. X-Men Mutant Massacre Omnibus, a $100 book, is in 1st place. And then we have Thanos, the Infinity Conflict again in 2nd. Absolute Transmetropolitan Volume 3 at $125. That shows up in 3rd. Silver Surfer by Slotin Allred Omnibus in 4th. There's Black Eyed Peas again in 5th. Venom by Donny Cates is in 6th on this chart because, again, it costs so much less than the other books. Firefly, Big Damn Heroes box set. That's that first Firefly product out from Boom of this size. $150 is 7th on our charts. Wonder Woman, The Golden Age Omnibus Volume 3 is in 8th. Marvel Masterworks Mighty Thor Volume 17 is 9th. Justice League Volume 1, the totality, is in 10th. We're going to look at scenarios here, and this is basically what has to happen in December for certain specific things to be said about the direct market overall. Before we do anything, it's worth noting that this only refers to the number of comics and graphic novels that were bought from Diamond by direct market retailers. Retailers are also buying graphic novels from other distributors besides Diamond, the bookstore distributors. They're buying them directly from some publishers in some cases. So, this is not saying necessarily that this is a barometer exactly for the health of the comics market or even the direct market because they get books from other things. But in terms of this one category we can measure, which is what retailers ordered from Diamond, we can say that if December's orders are down by no more than 13%, that's a $33.54 million month, then it is definitely going to be the case that the second half of 2018 will finish ahead of the second half of 2017. That should be easily doable. One of the reasons that I thought that December might be important this year was because December was such a poor performer in 2017. 38.49 million was less than any other month in that year. And so, it was a relatively easy target. $33.54 million, that is an extremely easy target. And so it is almost certain that that second half of 2018 will finish ahead of the second half of 2017. The first quarter of the year, the winter of 2018, was the part where we lost the most year over year. If December orders are flat year over year, so if it's exactly the same as that, as I mentioned, relatively poor month in 2017 at $38.5 million, then 2018 will finish at $519.5 million, down 0.5%. If December's orders are up at least 7%, so it's a $41 million month, that will be a good psychological thing to have happen, because that will mean that the fourth quarter will finish positive versus the fourth quarter of 2017. That will give us 3 up quarters in a row. It still will not be an overall year ahead, but it will be 3 up quarters to end the year with. And then finally, if December's orders are at least 12% over what they were in December of 2017, $43.27 million, that means that 2018 will finish above $522.24 million. That was what 2017 was overall, and that will mean that we will wind up for the year. Regardless of what happens, this is going to be a year in which we'll finish in a very narrow range, either less than 1% over what we did last year or less than 1% under what we did last year. And that's actually fairly common. In the last 10 years, we were within 2% of the previous year's sales, either positive or negative, in 2008, 2009, 2011, and 2017. So this just is one of the years like those where it's a fairly stable year. It is a return to stability after what happened in 2017. We'll be posting our estimates for November 2018 comic books on Comichron here on the 10th of December 2018. And you'll be able to find them by going to the website and just going to the monthly comic sales page, where we have individual months going all the way back to the early 90s now, where you can take a look at the charts, what Diamond sold. And then also you can look at some charts that we've developed going all the way to the end of 2019, which show sort of some of the things that we expect to be happening in that year in each individual month in comics. And then also, sort of what the comparative challenges will be with 2018. And that will include such things as where we have 5-week months versus 4-week months. That tells us right away when we need to pay a little bit less attention to the month to month or year to year comparative for that particular month, and pay more attention to the quarter. So until next time, this is John Jackson Miller, and I will see you in the comic shop.